Officials in the Los Angeles suburb of Arcadia have taken custody of a 13-year-old girl, and they say was kept in such isolation by her parents that she never even learned to talk. The girl still wore diapers and was uttering infantile noises, and a social worker discovered the case 2 weeks ago. But the authorities are hoping she still may have a normal learning capacity.
And I took one look at her, and she wasn't much bigger than my daughter Beverly, who had just turned 7 about 3 months earlier. And I really had a hard time conceiving of the idea that the child was the age that she was. The child obviously had been severely mistreated. She was still in diapers, couldn't walk. She had no verbal skills at all at that point. The house was completely dark. All the blinds were drawn. There were no toys, no clothes, nothing that would ever indicate to you that a child at any age lived there. Windows were covered to about 3 inches from the top, which was the only natural light that had ever come in there, and all the time the child was in the bedroom. The entire furnishings of the bedroom consisted of a cage with a pull-down chicken wire lid and some type of piece of wire securing it when they closed it down. There was a potty chair with some kind of homemade strapping device.
For 13 years, Genie had spent her nights locked in bed, her days strapped to a potty chair. During that time, Clark had ordered his son John and wife Irene never to talk to her. In her darkened room, she had led a life of near total isolation. Even close neighbors were completely unaware of her presence.
Nobody knew before. And when we found out what happened, how she was treated, I mean, everybody was shocked and just unbelievable.
Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Why did you keep your daughter in a room?
Mr. Wiley has no comment, Norman. We haven't had time to discuss the charges. We haven't even seen them.
Unable to face the truth, Clark took matters into his own hands.
This morning, the authorities reported that 70-year-old Clark Wiley shot and killed himself just before he was to go to court to be arraigned for child abuse.
After 13 years, Genie was at last free. And for scientists, she was just the case they had been waiting for. For 13 years, Genie had lived a life of complete isolation. At 13, she was the size of a 6-year-old. Worst of all, she had never been taught to speak. The question now, could she ever learn? Genie's case was so scientifically important that the government funded a team of scientists to help answer the many questions she posed. Two of the scientists who would become especially important to Genie were child psychologist James Kent and linguist Susan Curtis. Neither had ever encountered a case as extreme as Genie's. To Genie, everything was a new experience. Genie was making amazing progress. Genie was blossoming. Not only was she delighted by the world around her, but she was learning the words for the new things she was seeing.
She was extremely interested in everything around her. She wanted to know the word for everything around her. She wanted to engage people all around her. She was not mentally deficient. Her lights were on, and everyone who worked with her, from teachers to therapists, knew that she was not retarded. It was clear as day.
But Genie could not escape the effects of her past so easily. She was still haunted by her traumatic upbringing, trapped by the memories of the awful fate she had suffered. And linguistically, she had stopped making progress.
She learned tons of words. She has an enormous vocabulary. But language is not words. Language is grammar. Language is sentences.
Without normal stimulation, and the earlier this neglect begins, and the longer it carries on, the worse the damage will be. Starved of stimulation, Genie's brain had simply not developed the capacity for language. And now that she was a teenager, she would never be able to learn. Despite this, Genie continued to be a close part of everyone's life.
And that's not what happened, unfortunately. What did happen is about the worst outcome I think we would have envisioned.
On her 18th birthday, Genie moved back with her mother, Irene, into the house in which she had been so terribly abused. But after only a few weeks, it was clear that Irene couldn't cope. From here, Genie was moved into state care with terrible consequences.
I went from being asked to be her guardian to 1 week later being prevented from seeing her or phoning her. And ever since then, I've been prevented from having any contact at all. Primarily, I would just like to see her.
Now, a ward of the court, Genie lives in an adult care home somewhere in Los Angeles, prevented from seeing the people who once meant so much to her.